9. Shauna Bishop. Shauna Bishop was working as a Sacramento County Sheriff's deputy in 2019 when she began to get close with a colleague's teenage son. So close that the boy's parents became concerned that she was grooming him and filed a complaint against her. The 45-year-old had previously dated the young man's father and had also struck up a friendship with his mother, who was initially reluctant to believe the father's suspicions. An investigation revealed that he had every reason to be worried. He had ended the relationship after catching Bishop naked near his son. Another concerning incident happened when the boy's mother asked Bishop to help her talk to her son about some trouble he was having with marijuana and drinking. The mother wanted Bishop there because of how well the team responded to her, which at the time seemed like a good thing, but in hindsight was a glaring red flag. That night, Bishop reportedly went into the boy's room for a short time before exiting and sleeping elsewhere. The young man's sister raised the alarm after he told her that he had gotten intimate with Bishop. In a police interview, the victim said that the much older woman apologized to him the next day and said she hadn't been thinking straight because she'd taken a sleeping pill. She told him not to tell anyone about their steamy encounter. Bishop made a deal with prosecutors and pleaded guilty to 1 count of unlawful intercourse in exchange for getting several other charges dropped. She received a 1-year prison sentence and 5 years of probation, and it's safe to say that her career in law enforcement is over. 8. Wayne Pfeiffer. Wayne Pfeiffer was a part-time officer in Brewster, New York for 15 years starting in 2006 when the town's police department was first formed. For the majority of that time, he worked with 2 high-profile human trafficking groups by turning a blind eye to their activity and forewarning them of law enforcement operations in exchange for intimate favors from women who were forced into the trade. His relationship with one trafficking ring lasted from 2010 until 2018, and he was associated with another from 2017 to 2020. He was finally caught and arrested last year following an extensive investigation, which revealed damning evidence, including text messages between Pfeiffer and the drivers who brought women to him over the years. The conversations include details about what he wanted the women to look like, and even revealed that on some occasions, the illicit encounters happened at the police station during after hours. Brewster Police Chief John Delgado was shocked by the arrest. He told the Journal News that Pfeiffer seemed like a normal officer who came into work, did his job, and went home. Pfeiffer was not charged with trafficking, but faced other serious federal charges, including extortion conspiracy and using an interstate facility to promote prostitution and commit bribery. He pleaded guilty to extortion and conspiracy and admitted in court that he communicated with members of the trafficking rings and received free service from some of the women and girls who were being forced to work as prostitutes. The corrupt ex-cop faces up to 20 years in prison, although federal sentencing guidelines recommended between 37 and 46 months behind bars. Pfeiffer has agreed not to appeal any sentence of less than 51 months, which means that he's aware he's going to prison. He's due to be sentenced sometime this year. 7. Christopher SCHURR. Earlier this year, a police officer named Christopher SCHURR pulled a car over in Grand Rapids, Michigan for having an unregistered license plate. What should have been a routine traffic stop turned deadly when a struggle broke out between SCHURR and the driver, a 26-year-old immigrant from the Democratic Republic of Congo named Patrick Laloya. Disturbing body cam footage shows SCHURR forcing Laloya to the ground after he tried to run away, while yelling "Stop resisting, let go, and drop the taser." Just moments later, the officer fatally shot the suspect in the back of the head. Even though Laloya didn't cooperate with the police, he was on his hands and knees, facing away from SCHURR when the deadly bullet was fired. In other words, he appeared to be in a pretty helpless and subdued position, rather than posing an imminent danger that would justify an officer's decision to shoot. SCHURR was initially put on paid leave, but was ultimately fired and charged with second-degree murder. He pleaded not guilty and could face a life sentence if convicted. 6. Brian Brome. In July of 2021, a Palm Beach Gardens, Florida police officer named Brian Brome ran into a woman he hadn't seen in 20 years at a funeral. They reconnected and dated for a little over a month before the woman ended the relationship due to what would later be described as toxic behavior. She would later report Brome to law enforcement in a state of terror, claiming that he had aggressively stalked her and told her that if she ever left him, he'd hunt her down and kill her. The victim, who's physically disabled, further alleged that Brome was monitoring her home using a surveillance system that she gave him emergency access to. He asked about packages she received and visitors who stopped by, and also made numerous threatening phone calls to her. When the woman attempted to ignore Brome or didn't respond to his calls or text messages fast enough, he deliberately set off the alarm. She revoked his access to the system, only to receive a phone call from the security company days later saying that there had been numerous attempts to gain entry into her home. A search warrant revealed photos on Brome's phone of the interior of his victim's home, along with evidence that he'd masked his phone number using a burner app and called the woman pretending to be a salesperson from a website she frequently uses. She reportedly blocked any numbers that she suspected belonged to Brome and told him to stop contacting her, but he just wouldn't listen. When he found out he was facing an aggravated stalking charge along with 4 counts of cyberstalking, he allegedly tried to weasel his way out of trouble by telling detectives that he persisted because he was concerned about the woman's health. But Brome's history spoke for itself when investigators found a concerning history of him exhibiting similar behaviors towards other women. He's currently on administrative leave without pay pending the case's outcome and is free on bond. Speaking with local station WPBF, the accuser said that she's confident that the case is being taken seriously and urged anyone else who's been victimized by him to come forward. This suggests he could perhaps face even more charges, depending on what the investigation finds. 5. Javier Magarin. A 27-year-old Miami-Dade police officer named Javier Magarin recently became one of the latest perpetrators to make news headlines for allegedly using an Apple AirTag to carry out a stalking campaign. The small tracking devices were designed to help people find important lost or missing items, but they've appeared in several news stories about people misusing them with sinister intentions. Magarin is accused of planting an AirTag in his ex-girlfriend's car immediately after they broke up earlier this year, and then taunting her with text messages about knowing where she is or actually showing up at the location. The woman figured out how he was keeping such close tabs on her when she heard one of the AirTags making a faint beeping noise. According to an arrest report, he eventually admitted in a text message that he was behind the disturbing act. Magarin was let go from the police department and charged with stalking and installing tracking devices. He had been employed as a cop for less than a year when his career in law enforcement came to a screeching halt. 4. John Philip Barkley. In October of 2021, a student at Mitchell Community College in Statesville, North Carolina, noticed that a man was following her to and from her classes. He also allegedly followed her to her car, where he yelled at her and struck the vehicle's window. The harassing behavior only escalated from there until the victim decided things had gone too far and officially filed a complaint on campus. An arrest report accused a 59-year-old ground supervisor named John Philip Barkley of stalking the woman at a gazebo where she liked to study, grabbing her and trying to force his tongue into her mouth, and other disturbing behaviors. He was charged with indecent liberties for the unwanted advances toward the student, as well as sexual assault, battery, and 3 misdemeanor accounts of stalking. News of the arrest came as a shock to many students who were used to seeing Barkley on campus and were totally unaware that someone had become fearful of him. A Mitchell Community College spokesperson said that he'd been working there for a decade and that he'd been placed on administrative leave when the complaint was filed. There appears to be no update since the case first made headlines, so it's unclear where the situation currently stands. 3. Thomas DIORIO and Michael Sardone. In April 2021, a woman claiming to be an escort asked NYPD officers Thomas DIORIO and Michael Sardone to drive her and some other working girls from Queens to a hotel in Manhattan to see a client. She said that their usual driver was unavailable and offered the cops a tempting amount of money for the favor, pointing out that they were high-end workers and not just your typical streetwalkers. The men obliged and were paid $2,000 upfront for the job. They waited in the car for the women to finish with their appointment before driving them back to Queens, at which point they received another $2,000. DIORIO and Sardone gave rides to the women on 2 other occasions. In one instance, one of the women said that she was about to meet with a new client and asked the pair to be prepared to enter the hotel room if something went wrong. They agreed and ended up going to the room when she claimed that her customer was refusing to pay her the full amount for her services. Little did DIORIO and SARDONE know the women they gave rides to were actually undercover cops, and so was the client they accused of underpaying them. The men fell under internal scrutiny as part of what court documents described as an extended integrity test, and they both failed miserably. DIORIO was fired and SARDONE hastily retired once he realized they were under suspicion. An investigation found that the men had profited from prostitution, failed to perform their duties as police officers, and committed other misconduct, including seeing what appeared to be cocaine in one of the women's possession and doing nothing about it. 2. Christopher PULLEASE. 47-year-old Christopher PULLEASE was among several police officers who responded to a call in Sunrise, Florida last year about a disturbance at a convenience store. The suspect, who was accused of battering several people, allegedly resisted officers as they put him into the back of a squad car. Body cam footage later revealed that once the suspect was in the vehicle, PULLEASE, who was working as a sergeant at the time, approached and got into a heated verbal altercation with the man. As the situation continued to escalate, a concerned female officer grabbed PULLEASE's belt and pulled him away from the car. PULLEASE then turned around, grabbed the officer by the neck and pushed her backwards. He walked back to the vehicle where the suspect was being detained, slammed the door shut, then pointed at the officer who had intervened and offered some choice words. The incident happened in late 2021, but the footage wasn't brought to anyone's attention until a few months later. PULLEASE, who was placed on administrative leave while his superiors investigated, was recently charged with assaulting an officer and tampering with evidence. In a statement, the Broward County Sheriff's Office said that the disgraced former cop is accused of intentionally touching or striking the female police officer against her will, assaulting her by holding pepper spray up to her face, and assaulting the civilian male by holding pepper spray to his face. If convicted of the most serious offense, felony battery on a law enforcement officer, PULLEASE could face a 5-year prison sentence. He could also receive a 1-year sentence for assaulting an officer and 60 days for assaulting a civilian. 1. Operation Fox Hunt. In a disturbing attempt to persuade immigrants to return to China, a group of at least 9 people worked together to harass, threaten, and intimidate their targets into leaving the US. Dubbed Operation Fox Hunt, the coordinated stalking campaign involved threatening to hurt one's family if he didn't return to China, where he's reportedly wanted on bribery charges. Federal authorities began arresting suspects in 2020. 9 were indicted last year, including a Chinese prosecutor named Tu Lan, who's accused of traveling to the US specifically to participate in the abusive plot and to destroy evidence. The case also involves a former NYPD detective sergeant, Michael McMahon, who allegedly gathered intelligence on 2 of the targets after the group's previous attempts to get them to return to China failed. McMahon was a cop-turned-private investigator at the time, and his lawyer is arguing that he had no idea he was acting on behalf of the Chinese government when he took on the work. His police record contains no indicators that he would knowingly participate in a malicious stalking effort, but as they say, you can never be 100% sure of someone's true colors. Whether McMahon was an innocent and unsuspecting accomplice or a deliberate co-conspirator remains to be seen as the case unfolds in court. Thanks for watching. Would you rather live in a town run by crooked cops or in a remote region where it takes the nearest police and emergency responders an hour to reach your home? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.